Welcome to the Adventures in CRE audio series. Join Michael Belasco and Spencer Burton as they pull back the curtain on everything commercial real estate and introduce you to some of the top minds in the industry. If you want to take your skills to the next level and be part of a growing community of CRE professionals across the world, this is for you.
Hello and welcome back to the Adventures in CRE audio series. I'm your host, Sam Carlson, joined once again by my good friend Spencer Burton and Michael Belasco. And today we have a very special guest, Lynn Gray. And Lynn, we're first of all, welcome to the audio series.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. We're very excited to have you on the audio series here. And I'm going to kind of pitch it over to Spencer real quick. He's got some information about you and a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so we're really excited to have Lynn on the audio series. I'm going to provide just an overview of who Lynn is, and then let her add anything maybe that I've missed. But Lynn Zukerman Gray is the founder and CEO of Campus Scout. Campus Scout is an innovative provider of strategic campus and recent graduate recruiting services, career coaching for young professionals, and bespoke training programs for employers. He's recruited at more than 100 graduate and undergraduate campuses throughout the United States, Canada, and the UK, and has successfully assisted in the hiring of recent college and business professional school graduates for foreign and domestic clients. Ms. Gray and Campus Scout have been highlighted often in domestic and foreign media, including the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Time Out New York, CNBC.com, CNNMoney.com, Crain's New York, the U.S. News and World Report, BBC, Sky News, the Financial Times, Bloomberg's, TikTok, NPR, Reuters, and Spanish, French, Italian, Japanese, Canadian, Swedish, and Indian media among others. So,
wow.
That
is quite the rundown.
It is.
And now by Adventures in CRE.com.
That's right.
Did I miss anything, Lynn? And by the way, Lynn has a very interesting background in terms of her time prior to Campus Scout at Lehman Brothers. Maybe we don't have the time to talk through her entire history, but just a fantastic story, right, Lynn?
Yeah, well, I did have a long career in real estate, finance, banking, and investment before I and 26,000 other people were thrown out into the cruel world when Lynn went bankrupt. And so I think, I kind of have a unique perspective, having been an employee looking for jobs in the real estate sector myself, which is really, a lot of recruiters don't have the experience of they don't have experience, so that we hire for jobs we've done, and that kind of makes us unique.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in terms of our conversation today, many of our readers and listeners are younger professionals, and you have direct experience helping these type of young students and professionals land maybe their first job in real estate or pivot to another job in real estate. So my first question, and this is something I've always been curious about, what do employers look for in those junior candidates, the candidates who maybe don't have much experience, and so there's not a lot to differentiate them from a sea of other junior candidates coming from the same top schools and having the same extracurriculars? What really do those employers look for?
Well, it's a hard question to answer because employers are very different and their approach to junior candidates is very different. So, for example, if you have an employer, and I was very fortunate in my career to find employers who were committed to me in my career. So, employers who wanted me to stay with them for a long term. I mean, clearly it is the employee market right now. I've been through a lot of economic cycles where I lost my job and there weren't a lot of jobs to go around. But there are, the beauty of real estate is that there are so many different opportunities within the field. So, for example, you could, be beyond debt and equity. There are opportunities in development. There are opportunities in fundraising. There's so many different opportunities. So it's really hard to pin down one, a couple of things. But I will say, historically, my career, clearly grades matter, and so that's one thing. With a pool of candidates, and it's also a question of, do companies have rotation systems? Are they hiring specifically for one role? So for example, you might, let me just look at a hypothetical resume. Okay. I see on the resume that the student has a 3.5 GPA. That's great. Okay. What school is that coming from? Some schools are notorious for grade elevation. Okay. So grades become less important to an employer if you know that a 3.5, for example, from University of Wisconsin, where they grade on, there's a huge population of students, they grade on a curve. There's a huge population of students, they grade on a curve. Somebody who is an athlete and has a 3.5. The grades always matter, but the value that someone gives. One of the most successful hires I made when I was hiring analysts straight out of school at Lehman was somebody from Cornell at 2.8 GPA. A lot of employers won't look at somebody with a 2.8 GPA, and not putting your GPA on the resume is an indication that you've got below a 3.0 GPA. But an enlightened employer will look well beyond just grades. Okay.
And
the
actually,
next thing.
Well,
yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Could I just ask a quick question? What
Sure.
was it about the 2.8 that kind of stood out to you? Because it was a great hire. That technical thing would usually kind of be something that would maybe push people, off the stage.
We did a lot of recruiting at Cornell, and it was really just looking at the resume holistically and seeing. He happened to be from the hotel school. We did a lot of hotel loans, and we needed somebody with a hotel experience. But we saw a lot of candidates with hotel experience. Writing skills, it's been a while since Lehman, so I can't remember specifically that candidate's resume. But the wise employer, in my opinion, and we work for employers. That's our client base. Look for, they value, for example, military experience. Military experience, in my mind, a lot of employers look for athletes because of teamwork. At the end of the day, if you are on a campus, and using Cornell as an example, because I happen to be a Cornell alum, Cornell has a very large undergraduate real estate minor program. University of Pennsylvania, Wharton has a real estate minor. If you go to those schools and you are not a minor or a major in real estate, or at the university, we'll go back to University of Wisconsin, where they have they're very highly ranked number 2 in the country in undergraduate real estate programs. If you're applying for a real estate job from University of Wisconsin, and you're not in a business program and you're not a real estate major, probably that's going to be hard for you to get a job in real estate. So one of the indications for an employer is what's your major. A lot of schools, let's say Haverford in Pennsylvania, they don't have a real estate major. Harvard doesn't have a real estate major. So that you can't be a real estate major or minor. You don't have a program. Lehigh, they don't have the program. You have to. Some schools have business programs. Other schools, you got to have an economics major. Mm-hmm. When you go to school, I look at resumes, and we do a lot of real resume review for clients. I look at resumes and I say, okay, this student goes to Lehigh, for example. He or she has a 3.45 GPA. they are an economics major, and they employment during related to real estate. So, that already you're starting to see, okay, this candidate is demonstrating by what they've done in their summers, during the year. Their resume really is on its face telling your story. You're selling yourself to an employer, and why should this employer hire you? So there are so many different factors. Getting back to the original question, what are employers looking for? Each employer looks differently at a resume. Another factor, where are you going to school? Okay. A lot of employers look at who are the successful, who has performed well, and where did they go to school. That factor that a lot of our clients look at, and they ask us to recruit at specific campuses because X, Y, and Z employee went there, came to the firm, did well. So that's another factor that employers look at.
So what I'm hearing is,
yes.
If you're a student in, a target university, a company comes to campus, they're looking to hire an analyst or two, or maybe they go to a business program, they're looking to hire an associate or two.
Right.
You need to find ways to differentiate yourself beyond just the grades. And so maybe it's
right.
You have military experience. Maybe you've played for a sporting team. Are there other you've played for a sporting team? Are there other things that you've seen? Because not all of us are athletes, and not all of us.
Right.
So
some of us are mathletes.
Right.
That's
exactly right.
So that's what I'm hearing from you. Like, find something that is unique to you. And excel at it. Was that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, and it brings to mind a story that I will share with you. A lot of the big firms have what are called core schools, and they go, always go to those schools, or less and less it's on-campus recruiting. More and more it's done a little bit more creatively. Locally, they bring people to the offices, but in any event, at Lehman, we had a list of core schools. In a real estate group, we had a different list of core schools. We went to schools that were not necessarily core schools. And then we had a group at Lehman called Targeted Recruiting, which was, they actually went out and found the mathletes, the stars at other campuses that were not necessarily the core schools like Harvard, Princeton, Yale, Cornell. There were, because we felt very strongly that diversity, both in candidate and in school, was very important to deliver the best product to our clients. Okay. So the story I'm about to tell you is kind of a great story. There was a young man who the targeted recruiting group brought to me, who was a student at University of Iowa. And targeted recruiting had a deal with two people on the trading floor that each year they could nominate one person who was a star, where Lehman and probably none of the bulge bracket firms had as a core school. And they found this young man. And the story of this young man was that he graduated high school at 16 years old. And his parents said, "You're too young to go to University of Iowa." He was from some small town in Iowa. And so they said, "You have to go to community college. Locally, you got to stay home." So while he was going to community college and staying home, he developed a passion for real estate. And he decided that he would go to the local bank and convince the 16-year-old his local bank to fund his purchase of real estate and he targeted properties that he could raise $150 a month. Okay. So he started buying real estate, but he was 16 years old, and I'm sure his parents had a cosign, whatever. He got his associate's degree in a year, but he was still too young, his parents felt, to go to University of Iowa. So he continued his real estate career and then went to the University of Iowa, where he did, as you would expect, incredibly well. So he actually had a brother who was in the military who came home and took over his real estate business. So they present this kid to me to interview because he wanted to join our real estate group. And I said to him, I don't get now. I mean, you've been running a real estate business. Do you really want to come join us as a first-year analyst and have people tell you what to do, and you have to run, wasted underwriting? The AdventuresInCRE.com was not in existence at that time, so he had to do his modeling himself, and he said, "Yes, I do. I want to learn as much as I can about real estate." And we hired him, and he was incredibly successul. So, I mean, that's a very unique story, but there are ways that you can differentiate yourself. I'll tell you another story. There was a young man at University of Wisconsin who told me that he started a birthday cake business when he was a freshman. He felt that there was a great opportunity. So many kids were, there are a lot of out-of-state students. There were so many kids who might get homesick. And somehow he got a hold of the contact information for parents and started a very successful birthday cake business his freshman year. To me, there's an entrepreneur. Yeah. He thinks outside the box. That's something, entrepreneur. Yeah. He thinks outside the box. That's something that differentiated him. We hired him. He's a dear friend of mine now. Has been very successful. Works for a startup, and that is just one of many success stories. Because Wisconsin was not a core school for Lehman, but it was for our real estate group. So that's just a couple of stories of unique situations. Go ahead. Sorry.
No worries. So what about those that are late to the party? They're in their last semester, and they're young and they haven't quite figured it out, and all of a sudden, they get the bug, and it's January of their last semester, and that it can happen anytime, right?
Oh boy.
So now,
right.
They've gone through their undergrad. Now they're in that last phase, and they need to figure out the best way to position them. So what advice would you have for those students?
Well, those students might want to think about, first, a number of things. In addition to AdventuresInCRE.com, there are other tools to learn concepts in real estate, to at least get some coursework that shows initiative that you really didn't know what you wanted to do. To be honest, I was a psychology major. I went to Tufts undergrad. I went to law school at Cornell. I was a psychology major in my junior year at Tufts, and I suddenly realized that if I were going to, and I was interested in experimental psychology, so Professor wisely told me, listen, you may go for your PhD and not get a job, so you might be studying for the next 6 years. And all of a sudden, I woke up, holy crap, what am I going to do now? And I took the LSATs, and my father was a doctor, my mother was a research chemist. They hated lawyers, so I was in this similar situation because I didn't know what to do. I had planned to be a research psychologist, and then I said, "Oh no!" So I took the LSATs, and what I did, and because the job market is so tight, employers are bending over backwards to hire people. I actually took a year off, and I became a paralegal to make sure that before I went to law school, make sure I knew what I was doing. And that was one of the best things I ever did. Number one, I matured over a year, and I got great experience, and I was a much better lawyer when I did practice law for a short time, having had opportunistic world where, we have a lot of startup clients. That's very new to us. We have a lot of startup clients. There's a lot going on in property technology. Let's say you're an engineer, a computer science major, and you suddenly get the real estate bug. That would be, you could work for a startup. You could do your own startup. I mean, try for a year. I know a young man who did that, and not in real estate, but you could start a company yourself, or you could it's work for somehow in your network. Somebody will give you a break to get some experience, because unfortunately there are so many candidates who have been working in real estate, they were in diapers, because real estate can be a very family, generational business.
Right.
And there are a lot of candidates who have experience, not necessarily, they didn't work for dad or mom, but they work for dad or mom's friend. And they all of a sudden, they have experience when they're a freshman at a major REIT or a major real estate company. And that really gives them a big advantage, unfortunately, in the hiring. But I would not give up. I mean, I did not get into real estate. I was in the right place at the right time. I was a corporate lawyer, and my firm was about to be acquired. And I was 3 years out. A lot of lawyers started looking for a job anyway. And I just happened to be 3 years out. A lot of lawyers started looking for a job anyway. And I just happened to be literally in the right place at the right time, having breakfast with a guy who was a family friend who had started a real estate investment company. And he said to me, forget about what you don't want to be a lawyer anymore. You should come work with us. Mm-hmm. And that was the end of my legal career and beginning of my real estate career. But, it is a very, very tight job market. So that is very beneficial to employees. But nonetheless, you have to really, first of all, I really recommend, if you want to be in the real estate business, you should be passionate about the real estate business. If not, do something else. Don't go into real estate business because your friends are going into real estate business. Yeah. You won't be happy.
Or don't go into the real estate business because you hear somebody say retire.
Believe me, that doesn't happen.
So
you're better off going into tech.
So I get this question all the time, and it's from students, say a sophomore, a junior in college. They don't have the luxury of having grown up in a real estate family, and they say, Spencer, I don't have any experience. All of the analyst positions say that they want 1 year of experience. I don't have that experience. I need the first job so I can get that experience.
I know.
So it's kind of a chicken egg situation. What do they do? How do they get the experience they need?
Yeah, that's not just real estate. I mean, that's in every industry. Employers would be much happier if you have some experience, because then they don't have to train you.
Right.
And training takes time and effort. So, you have to create your own experience. Here's a perfect example. And I know it's hard if you're in your last semester to do this, but join the real estate club. How about starting a real estate club? I saw a resume yesterday for a young man who discovered that there was no real estate investment club on campus. Well, this person started a real estate investment club. And most universities not only encourage clubs, but fund clubs. So that's one way of showing an interest in real estate. You have to be creative academics are important, and you can participate in case competitions, not necessarily real estate case competitions, but employers love case competitions. So there are a number of different ways to be creative. And also, one thing that's very, very important for students to remember, networking, both with alumni from your school that you're attending, plus friends and family connections. It's very important to get out into the market and talk to people. And if you can impress a person, you might get a job without experience just because that person is impressed by your enthusiasm and your thirst for knowledge in real estate. So you can create your own job. It may not work to get a job in Goldman Sachs World at all. There are plenty of jobs in real estate that are not necessarily banking. I know a lot of campuses, there's a lot of pressure, peer pressure, that you want to go work at Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, all the bulge bracket banks, because you're going to retire early. You're not going to retire. Trust me. I worked for Lehman. I thought I would eventually retire. Well, look what happens, and you don't retire. So, there are a lot of different opportunities that are not the traditional path out of the large, I hate to use the word top universities because in my opinion that's ridiculous, but there is a natural progression from a lot of schools like Wharton right to investment banking programs, and that's not what the real estate world is really about. In fact, investment banking is, you could be an investment banker in any product line. It's the same modeling, and you really don't get a good knowledge of what bricks and mortar is all about.
And one thing, if I may add to that, just having my own experience going through the undergrad, even graduate school processes is, if you have the lack of experience, while you're in there, it never hurts to reach out to alumni and even volunteer. I mean, if you're looking for opportunities, like say, hey, I'm coming a little late here, but I'm very interested. Is there anything I can help you with or get involved with that I can take off your hands? And there's a lot of smaller shops out there that are, it's, 4 people maybe putting on 15 different hats. And there's a lot of, so to speak, grunt work that could help you get a foot in the door and just get that exposure and kind of figure out more of what you need to know to help you, A, get a better footprint, and B, be able to put something potentially on your resume that might stand out as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think one of those things too is like doing those things. And Lynne, you had talked about this earlier, is even if you can just demonstrate resourcefulness, okay?
Yeah.
So whether you may lack, job experience, but if you can show, hey, whether it's through, clubs, internships, whatever the case may be, you find ways and you just demonstrate, hey, I mean, look at my resume and you will see you will see resourcefulness. That is the pattern that I'm demonstrating.
Yeah.
And I think that really is probably a powerful thing for people to demonstrate there.
So let me lead that into our next topic. Many students, maybe they've committed to real estate, but real estate is a large industry with a lot of roles and a lot of company types. And throughout this audio series, we've discussed the importance of selecting a target property type and a target geography. But when you're a sophomore or junior in college, you may not know what property type is of interest to you. So I guess I'll send to you, Lynn, this question. Are there exercises, are there things that students can do that can help them choose the right path in real estate? Do they need to go spend a year abroad and have some self-reflection? What have you seen are maybe some techniques that students can use that can help them choose the right job out of undergrad or out of business school?
Yeah, I think that students have to use, as we just talked about, the alumni of their universities, colleges, as a resource to for real world knowledge. Okay, so you could take every single course that's offered in a real estate program at NYU, for example, and you may not, unless you have real world experience, really appreciate what working in manufactured housing development is all about. But most universities that have real estate groups, alumni groups of some kind, maybe it's a finance alumni group, but using Cornell, for example, we have a very robust the Cornell Real Estate Council. The Cornell Real Estate Council is an organization that's been around for years, which is comprised of now students and alumni, but alumni who are more than willing to help explain what real estate is all about. I mean, I mentioned I came from a family where my father, we never owned real estate. We rented an apartment in Queens my entire life. Real estate, forget about real estate. Finance was nothing that was, discussed at my dinner table. And so I learned on the job. I mentioned I was in the right place at the right time, but I could have accelerated my learning if Tufts has a very robust real estate network now. And any one of us would be more than happy to receive a call or a text or whatever from a student who said, very interested in real estate. I'd love to learn what you do. And can I buy you a cup of coffee? And can you tell me, can you help me? Can you give me some guidance and effectively mentor me without making a commitment to be my mentor, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And the more you reach out, number one, it gives you the opportunity to impress somebody who could be an employer. But number two, you get an understanding of what is property technology, what is industrial real estate, why do people buy single tenant net properties, and you're not going to learn that much. I actually taught real estate finance at Fordham and tried to give students more of a real world experience. But in most cases, what you learn in academics, if you have that at your school, is to do an intelligent process of selection.
Yes.
Bear in mind, and I caution everyone that, having had a lot of experience over the last 10 years and well before then with students, do not be afraid that you're going to make a poor decision in your first job that will ruin your life. Okay? Because life happens. Mm-hmm. I have worked for public finance firms. I have worked through downturns, and which created tremendous opportunities. In the early 90s, there was a downturn that wasn't a great recession, but securitization came out of that. I mean, opportunities come up that you cannot plan for, and life happens. I just spoke a few hours ago. Life happens. I just spoke a few hours ago. I was speaking to a candidate, and Spencer, you know this guy very well. He's been living in Chicago, and his wife got a great opportunity in San Francisco, so he wants to move to San Francisco. Did he ever plan to live in San Francisco? He's not even from the United States. So you can't plan your entire career, and you have to take risks. And I will also tell you that everything that you do in life professionally, I assure you, will contribute to things that you do years from now, and you don't even realize the value of what you're doing. So I remember there was a time when a lot of students really wanted to get into development, but there was a downturn. Nobody's developing when there's a downturn because it's going to be failure.
Right.
So I used to advise students, okay, you get involved in redevelopment. There are other ways and then maybe you're not going to be interested in development. Maybe that it will be a success if you find that's not for me. So, but I do know that most students coming out of school right now are very fearful that they're going to make a bad decision. And, you, at some point in your life, you will, and it will be good for you.
Well, and that kind of leads us maybe to Campus Scout, your company. Okay. I mean, that's kind of your bread and butter, is it not? You guys kind of help direct those people. So maybe talk to us a little bit about Campus Scout, how you interface with people seeking employment.
Sure. So I founded Campus Scout in 2009, and I analogized it to you don't open an ice cream store in the winter. You probably shouldn't open a recruiting firm when nobody's hiring, but we did.
That's a good analogy, by the way. I like it.
But we did, and we were lucky because by 2010 we had our first client, and just to give you a little background, I am a corporate lawyer, but I had worked for a Goldman Sachs spinoff in the downturn in the early 90s. And I knew when Lehman blew up that there would be opportunities for advisory firms to advise companies, opportunities for advisory firms to advise companies on opportunistic purchases. And that was my original concept as to what I wanted to do when Lehman blew up. And unfortunately, I couldn't convince my colleagues to go and form that company with me. In the meantime, I actually was teaching advanced recruiting and a course I had created called Managing Millennials at NYU. And I realized in teaching that course that I loved being among millennials. I loved the recruiting part of what I did at Lehman. In the last 6.5 years of Lehman, I ran the day-to-day operations of the global business and a lot of recruiting. We were doing a lot of recruiting. And so I decided to take a risk and start a campus recruiting company for employers who did not have recruiting teams. And, we were able to convince a bunch of companies that they needed us. And we started. It's very interesting also for your listeners that the campus recruiting business has changed dramatically since we've been in business. When we started the business, and the natural progression of our client relationship is that we act as surrogates for them on campus initially. Then as they hire more people internally, then we go with them, and eventually we don't go on campus. And that over the last 10 years, companies have progressed. Fewer companies go to campus. So our business model has changed. We've expanded our services into coaching. We do what we call now slightly seasoned recruiting, which is off campus. It's of experience. And we work for larger clients in that realm. We've been working lately, as I mentioned, for startups in that realm. So I think our advantage is what we bring to the table is that we have experience in both real estate and financial services, and we recruit for jobs that we have done ourselves, but we also help candidates become better candidates and to be more strategic about their job search. So let's say a candidate who graduates does not have a job. That's something that can be very, very scary. But that's something that we almost are therapists for those candidates. Right. Trying to keep them on the path of optimism and productivity. And that goes from when you're, to be honest, you really have. I have seen recently. This is interesting. that I have seen for our clients who are hiring for summer interns for 2020, and that process is pretty much done. They've received resumes from graduating high school students. That's how aggressive students are becoming. So nonetheless, I mean, there are a lot of clubs that we advise our candidate clients that there are clubs that they should join to start building their resume, even freshman year, because it is getting more and more competitive. More companies are having sophomore programs as well. We've seen over the last few years to build the pipeline early.
Right. Well, and so kind of in conclusion here, I guess the first thing I would say is finding bits of, parting words of advice. That would be the first one. Then the second one is if people want to reach out to you directly, what's the best way to do it?
Well, you could go to our website, is www.gocampusScout.com.
Okay.
So we always welcome people to reach out that way. Some bits, be optimistic. As I mentioned, you can't plan your entire life when you're a freshman in college. It just doesn't work that way. Multiple companies, some for a very long time, but every single company that I have ever worked for, excluding Campus Scout, have either been acquired or have gone bankrupt. And so I have dealt with that, yet I was able to build a career over many years, and you just have to go with the flow. So, we're always happy to help anyone out, because, they get the benefit of our experience. We are a certified women-owned business, certified by New York State, New York City, and WeBank. And so we are all women. We're as a small company and a small business, and I really encourage a small company and a small business, and I really encourage candidates to consider small business as an opportunity where you can make a great impact. You can rise very quickly. You can get responsibility quickly as well. Don't just react to peer pressure that you have to work at the banks.
Yes.
So,
I mean, again, I just hear from you, I hear resourcefulness. Like you are resourceful, but I mean, your career, who gets in a situation where the companies that you're working for, they're all going bankrupt, And
I had nothing to do with it.
Right.
I just wanted
right. Well, and you have a choice in that situation. You have a choice to say, okay, I'm going to give up, or I'm going to be resourceful and find the next move.
Yeah.
So I think, Lynn, you have been we will see you on the next episode.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Adventures in CRE audio series. For show notes and additional resources, head over to www.adventuresincre.com/audio series. Would you like to learn real estate financial modeling in a matter of weeks and do it with zero guesswork? If so, the A.CRE Accelerator is for you. The Accelerator is a step-by-step, case-based program designed to teach you exactly what you need to know and in the order you need to know it, so you can gain both the knowledge and experience to take your career to the next level. To see if the Accelerator is right for you, go to www.adventuresincre.com/accelerator. www.adventuresincre.com/accelerator.